is kind of go over just the simple, basic roll patterns and show you how I do it. That doesn't mean that everybody's going to do the same way. That's fine. Okay. What I do may not work for you. What I do is get me a thumb pick that puts it right above my knuckle. As you can see in these videos, just right below the knuckle here. Okay. And you see in here. And it gets a good firm grip on my thumb. Okay. So if I showed it both here, it gets a firm grip on my thumb. Okay. And I use a Dunlop large. This is mine. And I got, what I use is a .013 light picks. Now these here are the ones I like to use. You might find you like different ones, and that's okay too. But I like the thinner ones so they don't always weigh it down. Now, I accidentally bent one once, so I know exactly which finger goes on what. So once you put them on, you want to make sure they're good and snug. And you see, I don't have too much of an overlap of my pick to my finger. Okay? Let's get both of them in here. I don't have it overlapping my finger too much at all. So just barely touching my finger. Just barely touching, you know, the rest extends it. Just barely passing the finger. So I have it that way. Both of them really snug and fit, okay? So they fit real tight. They're not cutting my circulation off. Okay, so we got that. Now, here's what I want to show. When you're doing, I keep at least one finger down. Move my mic out, I'm not using that. You just keep one finger down. Now, some people play with two. I just can't get my middle finger to move while my third finger is being based. Okay? So my ring finger just kind of flows along with my middle finger. Okay? Just kind of flows along with it. That's really all you got to do. Now, what you want to do is keep your fingers, you want to keep your thumb basically right above the fifth and fourth string. So just right there. Okay? And then these others, if you have it centered right, you should be able to center it to where your middle finger, your first finger is right above the third string. So if you could do a full pinch, it'd be like this. Okay? So you could do a roll. Okay? Now, what I want to make sure we also do is learn the basic rolls of the banjo. Now, once you learn these basic rolls, I learned this in martial arts a long time ago, and this is something very, very important. A master does not become a master by mastering the master's techniques, but instead becomes a master by mastering the basics. And we really got to break that down to what we're doing here. Once we really understand the rolls, we've got a forward roll, starting with the third string, then back up to the fifth string, just practice that. Thumb, index, middle. Thumb, index, middle. Now we also have a backward roll, which is basically instead of going, we still want to start with the thumb, but instead of going with the index finger and then middle finger, we're going to do thumb, middle finger, then the index. So it's thumb. The next one we're going to have is an alternating thumb pattern, which is what I've been told it's called, is when you do a thumb, index, thumb, middle. So you're alternating your thumb in between your index finger and your middle finger. So it's like, or you can also do your fourth string. So that basically, no matter where you're at, you're starting with a thumb, index, thumb, middle. Thumb, index, thumb, middle. Now all these I'm doing it now because you see my left hand, I'm doing all G rolls because my notes are G, B, and D. So realistically, when you're playing anything in G, you could just alternate these picking patterns. Forward roll, backward roll, all down, thumb on. There's also rock on, thumb middle. Or you could do it, now this rock on is also used in the Foggy Mountain Breakdown. It's just index, middle. So those two individual notes together, like, or, those are considered rock-ons. Now we have pinches, which we can do the first and fifth, or we could do the third and fifth, third and first, or the second, first and second. Now that's another thing we do in Foggy Mountain Breakdown. We go. So you can learn that. We have the alternating thumb patterns, forward rolls, backward rolls, rock-ons, pinches. Those are the basic rolls that you're going to learn in pretty much every song. It just depends on what you do with your left hand. But we want to make sure our right hand knows where we're going. Now, another thing is, too, we're going to learn how do we go from a G to a C or a G to a D. No matter what song you're playing, you're eventually going to learn to know how to go from one chord to the next by just simple runs. That's like here's a basically D run. So what I'm doing, my left hand, which you're not seeing, but I want you to see my right hand here's. It's still just an alternating thumb pattern. Okay, so we learn how to go from those simple walks, walking from one chord to the next. You say no matter what chord you're in or chord you're going to, how do I walk from what chord I'm in to the chord I'm going to? What notes do I need to get there? And once we understand that basic philosophy, understanding of how do I get from what chord I'm playing to the chord I'm going to, and how do you get these basic rolls down here? Now, the reason why we plant our finger is to keep our hand consistent right here. You'll take less energy to move your fingers than you do your whole hand. And you're trying to keep yourself steady by doing your whole hand, you're going to wind up jumping all over the place. So we want to keep our hands as steady as possible. So I kind of rest my wrist on the guard here and just kind of plant my finger. And let my fingers do the walking. Okay? Now, you don't want them to just go just haphazardly. You want to kind of keep them together. Okay, so just kind of like this, because you're really just in a tight grouping here. You're just in a tight grouping. So the tighter we keep it. Or forward rolls. Backward rolls. And you just practice those rolls over and over again, until eventually when you put your left hand together with your right hand, you're pretty much, you're not, you have to worry about looking at your right hand anymore. If you look at anything, you'll be looking at your left, depending to make sure you're on the right fretting, or where you're going from one note to the next, sliding down. So your right hand should stay consistently right where you're at. You ain't going to worry about looking at that, because you're just getting your rolls, you learn your rolls, and the only thing you do is worry about where your fingers are at on the left hand. Let's say, for example, let's take the first half of Cripple Creek. I'm going to do a pinch, and I'm going to slide down. So all I did is pinched with my finger on the second fret, slide down the fifth. Now there's so many different ways to do that G to C roll, or the C back to G, and then the G back to D. So many different ways. There's so many ways of playing it. I mean, you can go. Or you go. Hey, all I'm going to try to do is I'm going to a D chord here. So you can do a pull off and hammer on the second fret, or from second to fourth fret. It doesn't really matter how you get there, as long as you show me a D chord. Show me that you're going to a D chord. That's pretty much really all it is when you're learning the basics of the banjo. Is understanding the chord structures of the song. The timing of it is very important. How do you play them notes within the timing construct of the song, and be able to go from one chord to the next? Once you got that down, you got the basics of understanding your banjo down.